Well, welcome to week 2 of our summer series for app development. This week is building a TikTok clone, which is going to be a lot of fun, I think. My name is Ryan Welford. I'm joined by Kirsten Hunter. Hello, Kirsten. How are you?
Great to see you all, or virtually see you.
Yeah, but it's not just us two. We have, let me make it smaller. We have a whole team of people on the developer advocates team, and many of them are in the chat ready to answer your questions. So please feel free to ask questions in the YouTube chat as well as on Discord. And I'll get to the Discord if you haven't heard about our Discord as well. But yeah, feel free to ask questions. We have a team of people who are ready for the questions and ready to answer them. So previously in this series, this is week 2. Last week, we went over the very basics of creating your first app. We talked about using the Create React App tool to get a kind of boilerplate app up and running really quickly. And we talked about the backend, the Node.js infrastructure, and also connecting a database to your app with using REST APIs and using our Astra DB. Now, I have a quick housekeeping things to do real quick, just to go over some of the tools that we'll be using. So YouTube and Twitch, that is where we are streaming. We are not very active on the Twitch chat. So if you are watching on Twitch, why don't you come over to the YouTube chat if you want to ask questions. We also have a Discord, though, if you want to join our Discord. It is a growing community of, I think, close to 14,000 people now. And you can also ask questions in there. We monitor that chat as well. And Discord is a great place to continue asking questions because once the workshop is over, we can't see the YouTube chat and we can't answer your questions. So if you want to join our Discord community, it's a great place to have your questions answered and continue developing that relationship and developing that community. Menti.com is a app that we're going to be using as a website where we will be doing some quizzes, ask you guys some questions. At the end, we'll have a game where you can win some prizes, some swag. But we'll also have a few questions here at the beginning that I would like to ask. But before that, we can talk about the tools that we'll be using. We're going to be using GitHub. All of our workshops are on GitHub. The repos are self-service, and all the instructions are there, and you'll be able to follow along very closely there. For our IDE, we're going to be using Gitpod, which is a cloud IDE. It integrates very well with GitHub, and you can open the code directly in your browser. Nothing to install. Makes it very, very easy. Kind of spins up a custom environment for you that has all the dependencies already there. We are going to be using Astra DB for our database. And some of you who were here last week will already have an account, which is great. We will go through that process very quickly again for those of you who were not here last week. But it is a Apache Cassandra-based database in the cloud, fully managed, serverless, and it has a API layer called Stargate that allows us to communicate it with REST APIs, document APIs, and GraphQL. And then finally, Netlify is going to be our deploy and hosting solution. Today, it is a global CDN that allows us to host our app globally and give us some really cool functionality with serverless functions. Tanvi asks, hey, I've submitted my homework, but it's not checked yet. Yes, we have had a lot of homework come through in the last week. We have been doing our very best to keep up with it, but there are still a few stragglers. So worry not, we will get to it. In fact, I'm sure we'll have someone grading it later today, if not in the next few minutes, if someone's available. But yes, we will get to the homework. And for those of you who are new to our workshops here, you might be like, what's this homework that I hear about? So we offer badges to those who complete the homework for our workshops. These are badges that you can use on your LinkedIn profiles or your other social media or anything like that. It's just a cool way to show that you are continuing learning. But we will talk about that a little bit later. This week, we are making a TikTok clone. So we have a mission for you. Your mission is to deploy a TikTok clone to production over a global CDN using one of the most robust and scalable NoSQL databases on the planet. and we have a little less than 2 hours. So good luck. Hopefully, you know, for those of you who were here last week, you have everything you need. And we'll see you in about an hour and a half to see how you're doing.
You know, what's really serverless is such a cool thing. Like, is this gonna be serverless?
Before anyone starts panicking, I'm joking. We will walk you through how to do it. Yeah, oh, I forgot the gift. Okay, bye. Yeah, no, we're not going to leave you on hanging like that. We will walk you through everything that you need to do. Yeah, Sinister, you've been to this workshop before? Yeah, we do it every workshop. It's a joke. We just want to throw people for a loop. We have a lot of new people, so they haven't heard the joke. All right. So let's get into it. All right, sorry. First step is we are going to talk about our database connection, right? So we have this TikTok app, and we're going to want to store some information. We're going to store links to videos. We're going to store titles, descriptions, all that kind of stuff. So we need a database, right? We're going to be using AstraDB. And like I said, this is a Apache Cassandra-based database, fully managed in the cloud. And we have kind of this is kind of our database stack, right? We have our user interface, right? Our web app that we're going to be developing. We have our database at the bottom. And then in between there, we have this API layer that we call Stargate. And this allows us to communicate with the database using several different APIs. We have a REST API, a GraphQL API, and this week we'll be using the document API. And this is how we're going to communicate with our database. So we have our repository on GitHub. We're going to be creating a Astra database, and we'll walk you through how to do that. It is completely free. So those of you who were not here last week, we created some Astra accounts last week. It is completely free. You can ask them. No credit card is required to sign up. You get $25 of credit every month to use towards whatever you want. I mean, you can do commercial production level stuff. It's like 40 million reads and what was it?
5 million writes.
5 million writes, terabytes
and
of storage.
Like 40 gigabyte of storage.
Is it 40? I heard it was terabytes at this point, but
they might have
increased
it, but it's beefy. Like, you could run a company, web application for that money, and it's a serious. We used to give you a free tier that was sort of more constrained, and you get lots more now.
Yeah, so. JoyD monthly, yes, every single month you get $25 credit. So, it'll refresh every single month. And then Yuvraj, can I use it for commercial purposes? Absolutely, yes. You can use it for whatever you want. I like myself. I have a Astra account, obviously, to do all these workshops. I don't have a special account that has unlimited whatever. It's the exact same one that you guys are signing up for, and I have never even gotten close to using up that $25 every month. All right. So with that, this is kind of our setup. We're going to start with the database creation and get that all up and running. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to Kirsten, who will walk us through that process. And it'll be super easy. So Kirsten, it is all on you.
All right. Do you have my screen? You do. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to deploy a TikTok clone. Somebody asked if we were going to make a full TikTok clone, and no. I mean, you can upload things. You can see you can follow and unfollow most of the basic functionality of TikTok. We're going to learn how to use the Astra.js document API to quickly and easily interact with JSON documents. You might think that seems kind of strange. If you're familiar with Cassandra already, you're like, but a document database doesn't have a schema, and Cassandra requires a schema. But because of the magic of Stargate, one of the things it does is it sort of translates, those JSON documents into something that Cassandra can store, and it does a lot of the heavy lifting to do those searches on the contents of your JSON documents. And then we're going to use the DataStax Astra DB, as Ryan said. If you already have an account, it's a little easier. You can kind of skip one of the things. And then we're going to use Netlify. One of the things so Netlify is a CDN, and that's, great. I mean, you've probably heard like Akamai and there's a lot of other CDNs out there. But one of the things that's magic about Netlify is that it allows you to create serverless functions. These are basically like AWS Lambda functions, but that means that your whole app can just run in the cloud, right? You don't have to host it somewhere. The Netlify will do that for you, and it'll handle making those calls. You can run the workshop on your computer. However, you need to have Node 15 and NPM 7 or later, or it won't work correctly. And we're not going to cover the things you need to do to run the workshop on your computer. If you're interested in running the workshop on your computer, you might just watch the workshop, and then at a later time, when it's convenient for you, you can set it up, and you could always ask us in Discord if you have questions. So we're gonna need a GitHub account. Hopefully most of you have one, or you can get one set up. We're gonna go ahead and use a Netlify account and an Astra DB account, but if you don't have those, we'll just give you the information to do that. And the Gitpod that we're going to use, which is an in-browser IDE, does not gracefully work on Safari. So I am using Chrome, as you can see, but Firefox tends to work as well. You may have to install a plugin, but it's very quick. It's a great system. Gitpod is so nice because it means you don't have to change your Node version on your computer. You don't have to install Node or npm, and it's just set up to work correctly. So there's some links here to the slide deck, the Discord chat, and questions and answers, and then the homework. So we'll bring this up again when we get done, and point you back here. But basically, this is once you have done these things and you send it in to us, and we see that you have successfully done it, then you'll get that badge, and you can put it on your LinkedIn profile or your website, wherever you want to put it. So let's just get started. So the first thing you're going to need is to create an Astra DB. Now, I will tell you that if you already have an Astra account, you could technically skip this step because we're going to check to make sure you have the database a little bit later. But if you need to register, after you register, it's going to ask you to create a database. Now, you're going to want your database name to be TikTok Workshop DB, and you're going to want key space to be TikTok _ key space. So there's a little show me here that it just walks through the process of creating a database in Astra. But again, if you haven't got an Astra database already, then it'll ask you to create it at the outset. So let me check questions and stuff. I think we need to take a few minutes for people to get this piece done.
Yeah, just real quick. So I posted it into the chat a little bit, but I'll post it again. So the GitHub repo that Kirsten is working through right now is publicly available. So the link is in the chat. If you click on that Create Astra DB link, that's going to bring you to the Astra website where you're going to create an account. You can use your GitHub account, you can use Google account, you can create your own account with your own email and whatnot. And it's a free account. and it will prompt you to create a database right away. And again, you can select the pay-as-you-go option, and it will give you $25 credit every single month. It is the free option. I think they might have changed the wording recently to start free or something like that, which is a little more clear.
Let me see what we got. All right. I already have an account. Sign me in. So we'll just go through this really quickly just to make sure that you all can see what happens. So because I already had a login, it didn't ask me to create a new database. So the current plan is still called pay-as-you-go, which is confusing, and we are we're kind of struggling to figure out how to make it more clear that it's like Astra Base or Astra Core or something. You don't pay. When you register for Astra, it's not going to ask you for a credit card. It's not going to ask you for a credit card until you've used up 80% of your $25 in a month. And then it'll give you the option to put in a credit card. You don't have to put in a credit card, and it'll just stop working until the end of the month when you get $25 more. So you'll never be surprised by being charged. You know, a lot of people are reasonably concerned because I know I ran up $30,000 on AWS in the past. So that's not going to happen here. You're safe. So here on the database, so we're going to create a database, and you know what? I'm going to tab and put this here and get back to the GitHub repo so we can see yes, keep going. All right. Maybe that create Astra DB should make a new tab. I don't know.
We can't do that in GitHub Markdown. It's so annoying.
Right,
we can't make new tabs.
Just fabulous. All right. So TikTok Workshop DB, and then TikTok key space, right? So you might wonder what a key space is. It's just a place to organize your tables. So it's kind of at the same level as other systems have databases, but our database is actually a collection of key spaces, and each key space is a collection of tables. So I'm going to choose Oregon because I am on the West Coast. Now, again, it does say it's a free tier up to $25 a month and pay as you go. This is this information about the cost. It's just informational for you. Like each of the providers has a slightly different charging mechanism. So you might use that to help you decide which backend you want to use. So I told it to create me a database. Now you'll see that I have a lot of databases, and you see I actually have multiple TikTok Workshop IDs, but only one of them is pending. That's the one I just created. That's going to be the case for a little while, and we'll come back and take a look at the database when it's ready. So now we're going to deploy to Netlify. This button is really magical. So what's going to do?
Real quick, we should let's wait until we have confirmation that people have followed so far. If you have successfully created the database and are waiting for it where it says pending, why don't you give us a thumbs up in the chat so we know that everyone has caught up. If you have any questions or any issues that you're facing, please let us know and we can work through it. PokeGo, the screen is not clear. We are streaming in HD, so make sure that you have selected the correct quality setting, and you know, maybe your connection is just being a little slow right now, but we are streaming in HD. All right, awesome. Lots of thumbs up.
Like everybody's doing great. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the repository. So I suggest that you do what I've done here. So you have one tab for Astra, one tab for the repository, and then we're going to deploy to Netlify. And I don't know if that makes a new tab. Let's just see.
Well, actually, I have a few slides that I want to go over before we do the Netlify.
Okay, that sounds great.
If you
do
would.
it.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry,
it's fine.
Kirsten. I'm gonna stop you for a second. No. Okay, so before we get into the Netlify, while we're waiting for Astra to do its thing, I want to talk about Jamstack. Now, Jamstack is kind of a more recent way of doing things, and that's what we're going to be using today. Now, Jamstack it stands for JavaScript, APIs, and Markdown. And there's a little graphic here. So we have JavaScript, APIs, and Markdown, which are sent then to a static page generator and then distributed via a content delivery network. Now, in our case, we're going to be using Netlify as our content delivery network. And it's also going to, or CDN, and it's also going to provide us the ability to use serverless functions, which means that we don't actually have to worry about our backend infrastructure at all. That's going to be facilitated by Netlify, and all we have to do is basically create those APIs that we're going to then call through Netlify and get the information that we need. And we'll go through how those serverless functions work, but we just wanted to give a kind of primer on Jamstack. Now, I have this link that you see on the screen. I'll post it in the chat as well. We're not going to go through this, but if you want to learn more about Jamstack specifically, we have a previous workshop that we did. We kind of went more in depth on Jamstack, and this is that content there. So if you want to learn more about Jamstack and kind of the philosophy behind it, you can go check that out. But with that, we're going to talk about Netlify. Like I said, Netlify is our global CDN. It's going to provide our serverless backend. This is kind of the architecture that we have going, right? So this is a web application architecture. We went over this last week. We have our client, which is mobile browsers, web browsers, as well as progressive applications, right? Applications that are kind of wrapped web views running as applications. And then we have our web server that's serving up our content. And that is talking to our database, which is storing all of our information. And we're going to be using Gitpod to develop that middle section, right? That content, the front end, as well as the backend APIs. And this is actually where Netlify comes in. Netlify is going to be that host, as well as the backend infrastructure for us. So Netlify lets us do a few things. It actually integrates directly with GitHub. It allows for continuous development, continuous integration, or CI/CD, where we can host our code on GitHub, and Netlify can connect to that repo. And anytime that we push our code to, say, our master branch, right? We've gone through all the tests and stuff, and we've validated that it all works, and we push it to master. Netlify will automatically pull that code, build it, and push it live, which is really, really cool.
It's pretty fast too.
It is actually really fast, and you can actually see it doing everything. You can watch the build process, which is really cool. It also allows us to take an existing repo, such as our TikTok clone that we have on our DataStax devs repo, and create a new site from that repo, cloning the repo to your own account, which is cool. And that's how we're going to use it in this case at the beginning. When you create a site from Netlify using the link that's in the repo that you're viewing right now, it's actually going to create your Netlify site and then create a new repository in your GitHub account and push all the code there. And so you'll be working out of your own personal repository. So that's kind of how Netlify is working for us in this case. And then it's also going to be our hosting site that pulls that code from GitHub anytime that we make changes. All right. Question time. Otherwise, I'm going to send it back to Kirsten.
Okay.
Idara, screen is not visible. I mean, stream looks good. We're streaming at 1080, so if it's a little blurry, make sure you check your quality settings. That you are at least 720. Hopefully your connection is good.
All right. So let me just I'm gonna list the things that this Netlify deploy button does for you. It's kind of magic. And Ryan talked about it a bit, but let's just go over it again so that we know what's happening. So the Netlify deploy button is going to create a new repository for you on GitHub. It's going to create a site on Netlify and then link the two together. It doesn't mention the last thing it's going to do, which is it's going to build your repository, make sure that there are no errors, and then it's going to push that the current contents of your repository to the site. So let's go ahead and do that.
And while you're clicking that button, I see a few questions about, can you use Heroku? I'm sure you could.
Yeah, we just don't have, we probably should have, a workshop that does that as well.
Yeah, we can't troubleshoot. If you run into issues, we can't troubleshoot it for you. In this case, we are using Netlify. That's part of this workshop. I really like Netlify. It's really cool. You could use Heroku if you want, but again, we can't troubleshoot anything that
the only thing is I don't know how or if they have serverless functions. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't think they do. But
okay, so anyway. It's going to create a new workshop for you, repository for you. So this is going to be where your GitHub repository, what it's going to be called. Now I actually created one yesterday, so I'm gonna give it a little. But remember, this is actually going to be created under your user in GitHub. So saving it to GitHub. Okay, so now here we are in Netlify. Let's take a little look at what's happening here. The site deploy is in progress, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. But there's settings. If you have used another system like Heroku, you know that there's always going to be environment variables and stuff, and we've got a way to set these easily from the workspace, and we'll take a look at this after we do that. It shows you where the repository is. It's gonna, the production branch is master. You could tell it to use a different branch, and on branch deploys, you can tell it, what branch to deploy. So a deploy preview is great. So you can actually go to a Netlify before you deploy whatever changes you have a little test site you can use. So that's fantastic. So let's go ahead and take a look at, so up here we have the site overview, which is where we started. We have deploys, and let's take a look at the site deploy in progress.
Yep, and so, just to make sure that people are finding the link just fine, if you go to the repo, and I can paste the link again, this will take you directly to the step that we're on. If you click on the, deploy to Netlify button, right? It's here,
so
I'll show my screen real quick.
If you haven't done it yet, I would actually say you should open a third tab. And put the repository in there, and then click the deploy to Netlify, because as you can see on mine, I have the repository, and then Astra, and then Netlify. And the way I got this Netlify over here was I copied this link and put it in a new tab. So this is just to make it easier to get back and forth. Obviously, you can forward and back, but that's kind of a pain. So what it's doing is it's running npm install on the repository. So you can actually kind of see, what the code is looking for, what is necessary for it to be able to work. This is information about which version of Netlify build we're using. We've got a deploy ID. I believe that helps us with logs. Finding information about our specific deploy. So it's going along, right? We're Netlify building, so it does a React scripts build. These are the functions from the functions directory. I'll show you those in just a second. As it goes through, you see the build script succeeded. Now, if there were errors, it would not push the code to GitHub. One of the things that can be confusing is you can go to GitHub and say, well, where's my code, right? But it is pushing to the repository. It hasn't, yeah, I think it's probably finished. Let's check. But before we go back to the new repository, let's take a look at functions.
Real quick, there's a few questions that I want to address.
Okay, sorry.
So there. All right, I'm gonna switch it over to my screen real quick. So site deploy in progress. Some people are seeing that, but they can't see what you were seeing, the build logs, right? So if you click on that link, that site deploy in progress link, and then you'll see this building message. Let me, I can make my screen a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And if you click on this is a link as well. If you click on that, then you'll get that log, and you can watch it do its thing. So that's how you get to the log. That was in addressing Sarab, Pam, Vidyasri, and Uki. And Black Deuterium, again, we are streaming at in 1080. So if you want to just double check your quality settings, it's at least at 720. It should be good.
And I'm going to cover one more thing while we're here at Netlify. You don't have to use that button, right? If you already have a repository on Git and you want to create a Netlify site associated with it, you can do that as well, right? It'll just pull it in for you. So there's lots of different ways to get your code running on Netlify. And then again, I will look at my naughty bins and you can actually look in the functions and see what the functions are all about. When a function, actually, I guess you can't see the code, but what you can do is you can search the logs to see when these are called, right? And what happened, right? So if you're getting an error and you don't know why, you can come here, you can look at the result of function calls that you've made. Okay, so
we'll get into the functions later.
Ryan will cover that later, but I'm just trying to give you kind of a tour of the Netlify stuff. Because it feels kind of weird sometimes to be running stuff like in this abstract way. So I want you to be able to find information that you're looking for. So I'm going to go to GitHub now. Don't go back to the tab that is DataStax Dev. Go to the GitHub that is linked from the repository. This is important. You don't have permission to make changes in our repository. Sorry, but hey, it opened a new tab. How groovy is that? All right, so if you look at this, it's the same thing, right? Except now you see I'm in Synedra. So over here, I'm in DataStax Dev. In here, I'm in Synedra. Great. Okay, so let's go past the Netlify button. And if you want to, browse around in Netlify a little bit more, you can go through it by following that sub steps.
Yeah. Give us a thumbs up in the chat if you have gotten this far. If you've successfully built in Netlify and your repo has been pushed and you are navigated back to your personal repo. I just want to make sure that we don't move too fast. I know we're kind of eager to get to the good stuff.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to lose. Oh, look at everyone's doing awesome. Great job, folks. I mean, it's fun. All right, so this is the Gitpod IDE. Now, this is again, we're trying to remind you, not the DataStax Devs repository. Yes, the Synedra or Sonic DMG or whatever your username is. And then here's instructions on how to get to where you're supposed to be. All right, so if you click here, you get to open in Gitpod, which is great. Are you using Safari? You will be sad when you click the button.
And Brave also has some issues as well. So
yeah.
Chrome and Firefox will work right out of the gate.
Yeah. So I open in Gitpod, and this preparing thing, that's a good sign. When I launch it in Safari, which I do a lot because I love Safari, it is my favorite, and it has all of my bookmarks and my quick links. It doesn't do that. It's sad. It's a very sad thing.
So Kirsten, if we also love Safari and we will only use Safari, how do we use the link if it doesn't work?
Well, let's take a look at the markup that we have, and I'll give you a little bit of information. So if you just really want to use Safari, let's find that GitHub button. So here, we're doing a little magic here from refer, right? That actually, you can put the specific repository in there, and then it will work in Safari. But Safari does not honor the magic of from refer correctly. But you know, Chrome is close enough for me, so you know, it's all good. So what's happening here? Let's look at the Gitpod, right? So this is an IDE, right? So we have a README, we have a package.json. You know, this is a Node.js application. I can edit things here. I can look at them over here, open things up, and generally, let's see, how do we preview? Do you know how we get the preview up of the?
For the README,
Yeah.
I know the shortcut in VS Code. I don't know if it works on Gitpod.
Open preview to the side. All right, good. Well,
there it is.
There we go. All right, so now you don't have to keep going back and forth between the repository and the Gitpod. The Gitpod is good. This probably looks very similar. It's the same stuff that we saw in the build log when we deployed to Netlify. So what Gitpod is doing here is we gave it some hints about what to do when starting the workspace. It's called a workspace. And this is what we do, right? So we're just setting stuff up for you here. That's just a little bit of information in case you're like, wow, GitHub is cool. Or Gitpod is cool. I might like to use it for something. All right. Now we're just gonna make sure with a git remote -v, which is what's up here, right? Oh, look, it's Synedra. Great. Does it say DataStax devs? No. So make sure that you're in the right workspace. And you know, one of the great things about having your own repository is that you can play with it, you know, past the workshop. You can experiment and whatever. So,
yeah. MMA Replays asked if they can use VS Code instead of Gitpod. Absolutely, you can work locally if you want to. I know a lot of people prefer that. I prefer to work locally a lot of the time too. However, Gitpod, we have set up Gitpod to pull a bunch of stuff and have an environment already set up that we know works. So I know someone answered your question already. Cedric mentioned that you do make sure that you have the correct version of Node and the correct version of NPM to make sure that all of the tools that we're using work. That is the benefit of Gitpod. It automatically loads that environment for you. So feel free
the
to
other
use
thing to
work
note
locally.
is that some people have had issues on Windows, and you know, we're trying to get that fixed up probably this week. But if you have Windows, I more strongly encourage you to use Gitpod so that you have a good experience. We certainly don't want you to be frustrated. So
yeah. So
okay.
Again, feel free to work locally if you'd like. But if you run into some issues, ask us the question. But there's a limit to our ability to troubleshoot if you're working locally. One person asked that I want to mention, Guitar Mask. If your Gitpod is stuck on creating, I've had that happen recently, and my browser was not updated. Try updating your browser if it doesn't fix itself.
All right, so we're going to do an npm install of Netlify CLI. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us the ability in the workspace to talk to Netlify about our site, right? So so we have the code here, and if we make a change to it, like, or we want to work with the site itself, that's what the Netlify CLI will allow. So as it turns out, we already installed it for you, but right. Sometimes the
Guitar Mask, you said your browser is updated, but it's still stuck. Is it because you have a lot of repos in your GitHub? That should not be an issue. It could be that we all hit Gitpod.
Are overwhelming it.
Yeah, it might take a little bit. So let's wait a little bit, Kirsten, before we move on.
Sure,
I just want to make sure that everyone's.
Let's get some thumbs up.
Yeah, give us a thumbs up if you are successfully, Gitpod is up and running, and you see basically what Kirsten is seeing here. And I'll answer questions as we're waiting for that.
Why don't we go ahead and generate our token? And give Gitpod a little time to...
Beats by Turbo, yes. Netlify is a safe platform. You should be good to go there. Reynolds has a question. Oh, it looks like Cedric might have helped him already. Instead of Gitpod button, you have add file drop down instead. Where did I go wrong? I'm not sure. Hopefully Cedric can help you with that one. That's an interesting problem. We have a few thumbs up, which is good. Does Gitpod take time in creating? Yeah, it can take a little bit longer when 350 people all hit at the same time.
Let's go ahead and create our token, and that'll give Gitpod a little bit more time. And then hopefully by the time we get back, we'll make sure everyone is good.
Yeah, and in answer to Victor's question, this is a bit of a recap of last week. If you have a token from last week and you still have it, you can use it. It is perfectly valid still. So if you already have a token from last week, awesome, you're done. But for those of you who are new, we're going to create an authentication token for us to communicate with the database.
So go back to Astra. So as you see, I have the tab, but again, it's astra.datastacks.com if you lost that tab. And the tokens are managed at the organization level, not at the dashboard, at the database level. What that means is that your tokens can be configured to provide access to multiple databases, so you can manage them how you want. So we're going to go to organization settings, and then token management. You see, I have a lot of tokens. But first, we have to figure out what role we want to attach to your token. So I'm going to go with database administrator. And you can see a database administrator can do pretty much everything. And that's what we're going to use for this workshop. Now, obviously, if you're making an application, you're probably going to have some tokens that you give to app developers that have limited access to particular databases. You know, that's great. That we have this, it's very configurable. But for now, we're just going to make a master token.
Yeah, and Supriya asks a good question. So the same token can be used for different apps. It can be. I think you probably would want to create separate tokens for different apps so that you could control it a little bit more. But you can use the same token.
It also helps with your logging, right? You know, to know who is making a call. Like one of the things about OAuth is that, you know, you have an app associated with it and a user associated with it. And, you know, that information can tell you what particular apps are doing. So here we are. We've got client ID and client secret. You do not need those today. Do not copy them. Do not use them. Just leave them be. Token is what we're going to take. But first, because I know that I make mistakes sometimes, I'm going to download the CSV. These lovely strings that you have here will never be shown again by your browser. You will not be able to get to them. So if you ever think, hey, maybe I'm going to accidentally copy the wrong thing, over my token, then you just have a CSV. So I downloaded a CSV, and let's take a look at it. So it's generated token.csv, and the piece that you're interested in starts with *CS and goes to the next quote mark. All right, so I'm going to leave that. We're going to need that token, and what that token is going to do is it's going to make it possible for us to make sure you've created your database correctly, and set up information about your database's ID and the key space and various other things. So did everybody get a token and save the CSV? Let's have some thumbs up there. Yes, Rasha, as you can see, I have many, many tokens. You can create as many as you want. If you gave it to someone and then you don't want them to have access anymore, then you need to delete those tokens, right? So, or if you accidentally check in something to GitHub that has your token, I can't say that I've ever done that, but if you did, you just want to make a new token that has the same permissions and delete the old token so that nobody can. What's up, Suck?
Nayland says, do we have to download the CSV? You don't have to download the CSV, but if you navigate away from this page, you will not be able to get that token again. You won't be able to copy it. So the CSV kind of gives you a hard copy of it. So that's what you would want to. You don't have to though. There's another question. I have many databases. How do I pick for which database I want to generate the token? As Kirsten said, you generate the token on an organization level, not on a database level. So the database administrator token is valid for any database. So
yeah, so and there's a link on that page here that says user permissions that talks about what each of the roles give you access to. And so the reason, just so you know, that we're using database administrator is because we're going to use a DevOps API to create your table, make sure you have the table and all that stuff. And then we'll use the REST API for other things. All right, so here we are. We're now going back to here. And is anybody still waiting for Gitpod to do its thing?
Mine just finished, if that gives anyone an idea of.
Yeah, so I mean, I am fine with waiting a little bit longer so you guys can jump in, but we need to know if you're still having issues.
Nayland, the CSV automatically is saved as file. Yes, some browsers don't add the CSV suffix, so you can just add .csv. You can open it from a text edit, or from Notepad or whatever. It's just a text file, really.
Beats by so Beats by Turbo. AstroDB is valid. It will not spam your email. It will send you email sometimes, but when things happen with your database, like when you create a new database, then it'll tell you it's creating the database and that it's created it. If you get to that 80%, it'll send you an email telling you that you've reached that. I'm not sure if you can configure what things spawn emails, but it's not spammy, and it's not. If you are interested in the things that we're doing and you want more emails from us, you have to sign up for our mailing list. So,
Sweet Spot Drummer asks where the Gitpod link is. So I'm going to show real quick. So I'm going to switch to my screen. I just put a link in the chat for the section that we're on, launch Gitpod IDE. And if you drop this down, you see the click here to launch Gitpod. If you, oh, hold on. My face is in the way. Okay. If you click on this arrow to drop that down, this is the link that you want. Now, as we said before, Chrome and Firefox will use this link perfectly fine. Safari and Brave will have some issues with the referrer link. So I'll ask one of our mods to put in. It should be like gitpod.io / your repo address, I guess. I'm not entirely sure what the format of it is, but we can give you a format of that if you're not using Chrome or Firefox. But it's hidden a little bit because we want to make sure, the reason why we hide it is we want to make sure that you're working out of your repo, not out of ours. So that's why we hide it. But yeah, it's just behind this little arrow. Okay.
Okay, so I guess it seems like we are we're doing well. Now I'm going to copy and paste something, and that means that my clipboard is not going to have the token anymore.
Can you zoom in a little bit? Couple
this one.
ticks.
Yeah. Oops. There. Ooh, that's probably too big. How about that?
It's never too big.
Is that good?
I think that'll be good. Let us know if it is small for you guys.
Because at some point you're going to be wanting to show the code, and if it's much bigger, it'll be hard to talk about. Anyways, so I am.
Ruchi, what error is it throwing? The Netlify CLI error. If it's just that there are some vulnerabilities, that's typical NPM for you. But if there's a specific error, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, you can run the audit if it makes you feel better. So I'm now going to run the Astra setup command, and what that Astra setup command is going to do is, and just say yes, it's fine. It is going to take my token, and it's going to make sure that there is a TikTok workshop DB, right? And a TikTok key space. And if they don't exist, it will just make them for you. So I'm going to go over here to the document that I downloaded, and then I'm going to copy that and paste it here. Now, just to make sure you have the right one, it must start with Astra CS and a colon. Right? That is the token that you're looking for. Okay, so it's like, I know who you are. I'm looking for the workshop DB. Great, it's all good. And I'm looking for the key space. Okay, great, we are ready to go. If you didn't create the database, or if you gave it a different name, it'll just create it for you. It'll take a few minutes because the database does have to activate. And now I'm going to run Netlify dev. We're going to get to play with code in just a few minutes. And this should, So it opens it up for you. It doesn't, there is, what is up with that? Do I have to open that in a different browser?
Oh, yeah. You click on that little arrow to the right of that URL.
Oh, open in that external browser. This?
Yeah. No, to the right.
Oh, your head.
The little box.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay. So we're going to launch it in an external tab.
Maria.
And look, it's a TikTok clone. Sometimes you have to click in the middle for it to load stuff up, but we haven't really put any data in there yet.
Maria asks, so after typing git remote-v at Gitpod, we're also going to type the GitHub DataStax devs link. No, just git remote-v to make sure that you are in your GitHub repo, not the DataStax devs repo. That's just to double check. Yeah. There was another one that I wanted to refresh real quick, Kirsten. It does an initial load of data. That after a refresh should
is not. Maybe yours will.
Is it not? Okay. I'm still trying to catch up. I've been answering questions.
Command shift reload. Nope. All right. Well, let's get all the linky stuff working. Let me look at my asterisk, my
Felipe
my,
says npm exec doesn't work, but npx does. Did you successfully go through the process then? Because if you're working locally and don't have the correct node version, npm exec does not work. But if it npx does, I guess that is good, right?
it sort of works sometimes.
Okay.
npx. Anyways, so what Astra setup did is it created this .env file, and this has information about that's what he meant by kill it and start again. Okay. So you can see that we've got it's an admin token. I'm also using it as an application token because some of our code uses that instead. And this should work now. Except that it's just not loving me. All right, let's try it again. It worked in the Gitpod. It's very strange. Let me kill this again and go back to here. Yeah, see, it's got the stuff in it now. So we're good. So you can see this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with this little TikTok application here. Now that's kind of cool, and I suppose you could share your Gitpod.io with the world, but that's not what you want to do, right? We want Netlify to host our content for us so that we can share it with all our friends. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a few things to teach my workspace about the site that I wanted to use. So remember, we made a site and it's associated with the GitHub, but it is not necessarily associated with this workspace. So now we need to tell it to associate with workspace. So you're going to need to Control-C out of the Netlify dev. Or you can open a second terminal if that is comfortable for you. Then we're going to do a Netlify login. Now this is a little tricky because browser IDEs do not actually open links correctly. So what we want is, no, I want that. I want that, and copy it for me. Yes, okay. So you need to open another tab and paste in that link. Fortunately, it will tell the and authorize. Fortunately, it's going to go ahead and tell the Netlify CLI that it was successful. So so now we've done the login, and then we're going to do Netlify link. And what that does is it says, do you want me to look for a site that uses the same GitHub repository that you're using? That's exactly what we want, right? So it's Naughty Ben's. That's just the one I'm using. Now, remember that I showed you the environment variables. And like I said, in Netlify, just like in Heroku and all those other hosting sites, it is a pain to set your environment, but this makes it possible for you to take your env file, which is where we have the information, right? And send, import.env and send those to Netlify. So let's go look at our Netlify. Get this, yes. Okay, so here we are at the Naughty Ben's, right? We know that's the right one. Let's look at the site settings. So build and deploy environment. Did not happen, did it? Let's see if we reload it. Yes. Okay. So you see, we got our environment variables all set, which is great. Copying and pasting is a pain. This way, you're sure the same values are in your .env file and up on the site. Now, in order to make that happen, we need to build the site and we need to deploy it again. Now you're probably thinking, why do I need to deploy it again? You already have it. It's working fine. But those environment variables will not actually update until we do a new deploy. It doesn't make sense. I think they should do a deploy if you update your environment variables, but that's not how it works. So we're going to do a Netlify build.
Alan, you are quite far ahead of us, so we'll have to catch up to you before we can answer that question. It's for step 11. So I see a few people running into an issue, an error that comes through when running Astra setup. I actually ran into the same issue. I'm working on a fix at right now. I will address it shortly once I get through it. But yeah, I am seeing that same thing. So stay with me. Someone asked what Netlify Dev does.
Oh, Netlify Dev runs a local version of the code that you have in your workspace. Or if you're on your local system, it'll just put it on, I think, 8888 or something. So you can test and work with your code without having to deploy it every time, right? So we've done a Netlify build. We're going to do that Netlify deploy to production. Now, in the real world, you would likely deploy it to staging and then test it, and then. But we're doing a workshop, so we're just going to skip over all that rigor and jump right to doing things. All right, great. So then you can just say Netlify open : site, which may work. Yes, it does. So you can see up here, now we're not looking at the Gitpod link anymore, right? The link we're using is a Netlify link, and there's my naughty bins.
Oh,
right? So
real quick, I see I see a few people who are saying that they're still waiting for authorization after Netlify login. So Netlify login gives you a URL in the terminal that you need to copy and paste in a new tab to continue that connection. It's just going to be waiting there in the terminal until you do that. So if you're still waiting for it, you need to copy that URL and paste it into a new tab.
Yeah, so this here where it says opening this, it doesn't actually open that. So we need to go to the extra tab and authorize it. All right. So I believe that it is Ryan's turn. So let's go ahead and take some questions. And anybody who's stuck, please. For site ID, Maria, you want to pick the site that has the same code as your repository. You can't get to the part with Netlify login. Tanuj, are you using Safari? Yeah, Brave doesn't like the link either. You need to use Chrome or Firefox. Where, Farha? Netlify link will connect this folder to a site on Netlify. How do you want to link this folder to the site? Use the current remote origin. And then it looks for the matching site for you. You don't need a site.
Hey, Kirsten, can I see your .env file real quick?
Sure.
So I know a few other people are running into the same issue that I am running into, and I don't really know what the problem is. It's
I'll
creating.
fix it later today.
So when I run Astra setup, and some of you may be facing the same issue, here I'll show you what happens. Give me 1 second. So you see this error, the request failed. This is what I'm running into as well. So we're gonna have to probably build the .env manually in this case. I tried clearing caches and all that kind of stuff, which has had that issue.
Yeah, that's odd.
Let me see if I can just check it one more time. So variables, so yeah, no environment variables. So we're gonna have to create this a little bit more manually. It does the keys for me, which I guess is useful since I don't have to type that in.
It's not able to connect to the database.
Yeah, so we're gonna need to get those other things. So let me see what your .env looks like. So we're going to need the DB ID.
Yeah, I'm gonna make that more all the way. There we go.
I'll walk people through it. So those of you who need to do it manually with me, pay attention. I'm gonna walk through how we're gonna do this. All right. So in your Astra account, right, we're right here. You're gonna click on your TikTok Workshop DB down here, and then at the top there's a Connect tab. Click on the Connect tab. And we're going to use the document API, so that's all good. I have to scroll down because my window's zoomed in, but yours should probably be to the right of it. And it's this thing right here. This block right here. We can actually copy this whole block using the widget. But this is going to include our DB ID, our DB region, and our DB key space. It also includes a spot for our application token, but we already have that, so we'll just delete that when we get it. So if you use this this widget to copy it, and then we'll go back to our Gitpod, and at the end of this line, I'm just going to hit return and paste this in. I'm going to get rid of that last line. I'm going to get rid of this export because we don't need it.
Does the .env file require the quotes? I do not recall.
It does not require them.
Okay.
It doesn't care, but it doesn't require them.
Okay. Well, then I'll probably take them out because...
All right, so if I save that, then this whole Astra setup part we can skip because that's what the Astra setup does. So that should get us back to, if you're running into that error, this process should get us back on track. Cool. And now,
yeah,
so
and I'll try to figure out what's going on with that.
So I'll run Netlify dev. I'm just going to confirm that this works for me. And then I have to pop this out into a new tab. All right. I'm going to... Did you ever get the content to load? Is that still something that we're facing?
I restarted it and then it loaded.
Oh, you restarted it? Okay.
Restarted the...
Yeah.
Oh, you're having errors anyways.
I'm going to restart Netlify dev.
I think you might need the quotes. Oh, no. You're good.
Nope. No, you don't.
Cool.
All right, so I'm going to pop this out again.
Yeah, weirdly, it actually loaded correctly in the Gitpod browser part.
In the Gitpod browser?
Yeah, so go up to simple browser, the orange tab you got there. So for me, that one actually ended up working, but
Oh, you
it's
know
not right
what?
now. And what are you getting?
Hold
Your
on.
token is not.
My token might you know what? I think you're right. This is embarrassing.
I don't think it's my fault.
No, it's not.
Your
It's not
token.
your fault. I'm gonna try a new token because we regularly delete our tokens because we obviously show them here on stream, and I'm pretty sure. Oh shoot.
But do the Astra set. Remove your .env file and start Astra setup again, because I think that is why it didn't work.
I'll do that. Oh, I should probably stop this, huh? All right. Here we go.
And I will make Astra setup smarter about, no, your credentials are not good.
Hey, it was my token, guys.
All right, so if you're having this problem, make sure you copy the Astra CS token and not any other token.
Yeah, and it does have to include the Astra CS part. It's not just the jumble of letters. So, all right.
All right. So
thank you, Kirsten. You are very smart.
So let's. I think. People still may have some questions. We're going to move on to the code next. So let us know how you're doing.
There we go. Yeah, give us a thumbs up if you have gotten to the point where you ran Netlify dev and see it in the Gitpod browser. Let's see, there's got to be some questions. S. Kumar asks, where do you normally store the token in dev QA production environment so the code can pick up the right token? It's in the environment variables. So the reason we use environment variables is because we don't want to expose these credentials to like public repos, right? So the .env is going to be ignored by Git and it won't be copied to your GitHub repository. So we have the .env for our development, right? But then we also save these environment variables on Netlify, and that's what that Netlify link, Netlify login stuff did, is that it took these environment variables and uploaded them to Netlify so that it had a source to get these credentials. But yeah, that's why we don't store them in variables or in any like JavaScript files or anything like that. We want to keep those things secret.
But it's pretty standard, and I'll also point out that most CI systems like Travis and Jenkins have the ability for you to set environment variables within them as well. So it's a very standard way to keep secure information, but be able to run the same code in multiple places.
All right. Let's see. Bram, it works, but I don't know why yet. We'll go over some of the we wanted to get you to a point where it's working, and then we're going to go over some of the detail stuff. Yeah.
So we have 40 minutes. How are we doing on time?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
I think we're okay. Yeah. Interstellar accidentally closed their terminal.
Gitpod?
Their terminal. What's the terminal button? Terminal. If you get this menu on the top left and then terminal, and you can click new terminal. That's fine. Hamburger menu. That's what it's called, David. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Having error, failed to compile. Interesting. That's a new one.
Need more information.
Yeah. Is that when running Netlify dev? Where's Jamstack coming in here? We can go over that. TikTok launched. Awesome. All right. Keep the questions coming. We have moderators that'll answer the questions, and we'll address them when we can. But given the time, I want to go over some of these questions, some of these things. So Jamstack. Where's Jamstack coming in? So this is a Jamstack application, right? JavaScript, APIs, and Markdown. So our JavaScript is here in our source. We are using React as the basis. So we have our pages, right? We have our home page, and that's going to push our HTML here. This is our markdown that we're using. It's going to push our HTML and our components to the virtual DOM. We went over this in week 1, kind of our basic React app. So that's our JavaScript, that's our markdown, and our APIs, and that's what we wanted to focus on in this week, is how that API part of it worked. So we are using, as we have said many times, we are using serverless functions. Now, what are serverless functions? And I actually have a funny GIF. The serverless functions mean that we're just gonna get rid of the server. No servers, just unplug those bad boys. Certainly not, right? We're still using a server, but we're not actually responsible for the backend infrastructure anymore. We don't have to build up a server app that, takes requests and serves back the information. We're going to use Netlify for that. And so this is how Netlify is structured. We have our front end, right? We have the build system on Netlify that's going to take our code from GitHub and build it and push it to the front end. And then it's going to provide endpoints for our serverless functions that we can then call from our front end to get our information, right? So our function.js files, our serverless functions, will be served via API. And so we actually develop those things simultaneously with our front end. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if you go to your basic, let me zoom in. Always have to zoom in, right? All right. So if we go to our root in our Gitpod, you will see a netlify.toml. This is a configuration file for Netlify. This is going to tell Netlify a few things. First, it's going to give the command on how to build our app, npm run build, pretty standard React script. That's just going to tell it how to build our app. Then it's going to, we're going to tell it where to find our functions. Where are we storing our serverless functions so that it can use those to create the endpoints that we can call. And then our publish, once it's built, the folder that you can find all the files in is called build once you run build. That's not as important. So functions are stored in our functions folder. So let's go to our functions folder right here. So this is our serverless functions, right? This is outside of our source. Our source is all of our front end stuff. But then when we want to create a backend function, say for retrieving data or adding data or whatever, we're going to create a serverless function in this folder. And so this is an example of, let me scroll down on our repo here. This is an example of one of those functions, right? So we're going to export our asynchronous function, and this is what it's going to do, right? So anytime we have one of these files, so this is add.js, Netlify is going to search this folder, this functions folder, and see, okay, I've got an add.js file. It's in the functions folder, so it's obviously a serverless function. I'm going to create an endpoint for this file, and it's going to create it in a very consistent way that we can count on. It's going to be like .netlify/function/add in this case. And we can actually see that if we go to, actually, I haven't done the Netlify link stuff yet, but if you go to your Netlify site, Kirsten, do you mind navigating to your functions
Just
page?
a sec.
Okay. Are you keyboard warrior?
I was, yes.
Okay.
All right. So, you want to see my what?
Go to your Netlify site and go to the functions page.
Okay. I believe it. Oh, let's just go there.
So on the top, you see that. Oh, not the actual site. The Netlify backend that you were just in.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I am.
So
okay.
on the top, there's the tab functions.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
go ahead and click the functions tab. I'm kind of walking
Mm-hmm.
them through it. So you can see, thank you, Kirsten. This is, I'll just talk through this part.
Okay.
Go
Let
back,
me go
go
back.
back one page.
Yeah,
Go back one
just tell
page.
me when to click.
Yeah. This is good. You can go back to keyboard warrioring. Okay, so this is what Netlify sees in our functions folder, right? It's going to search this functions folder and it's going to create these endpoints. And so it's got add data, edit, and posts. And if I go back to my code, you can see we have add data, edit, and posts. And so it's detected these files and it's created the endpoints, right? And so those endpoints are usually .netlify/function/ whatever the name of the file is. And so that's the endpoint that we can call to execute this function that we've defined. So if we talk a little bit about how this is working, if we go to the utils folder, so this is not technically a serverless function, but it's the utility that we're using to make everything work. This is how we connect to our database, right? So we have our Astra DB, we have our credentials that we've stored in environment variables, and we're using the Astra.js collections library. Now, this is the library that is used for the document API that we're using. And one of the things that we do is we have a function here called get Astra client, and we are creating a client, basically a connection to our database, and we're giving it these environment variables, right? So we've stored our DB ID, we've stored our region, and we've stored our application token, and it's going to use this information to create a connection to our database. And then it's going to create something called a client that we can use then to manipulate it. Yes, Kirsten.
I'm not sure that everybody knows exactly what a document database is. Are there other databases that are document databases that they might be familiar with, like Mongo?
Mongo is a document database. So the document-oriented databases are primarily schemaless databases. We use them to store basically JSON objects usually. It's that are called documents. And it's just kind of a way to very quickly store information without having to worry about creating tables or a schema or anything like that. We're just going to store these documents, store these objects as documents, get a document ID, and we can retrieve that information later. So that's kind of the basic rundown of document-oriented DBs. Now, Astra is based on Apache Cassandra, which is not technically a document-oriented DB, but we have the API layer that allows us to use it as a document-oriented DB. And if you want to learn more about how we do that, we have another workshop called Introduction to NoSQL Databases, and we dive a little bit into how that works, as well as a bunch of other NoSQL database styles. So not really inside the scope of today's
no, I just wanted to make sure that they understood, like, we're going to upload JSON documents and then they can do operations on those documents based on the contents of the documents, right? So you can look for things that, you know, have a matching field or whatever. So it's pretty cool. I mean, you know, especially for something like this.
Yeah. So, and I'll touch on like how we're using these documents in a little bit. But first, I'm talking about like how we're creating that initial connection to our database, and we do that by creating a client, providing the credentials, and it connects us to that database, and now we have a client that we can use to manipulate that information. And one of the things that we then do is we have another method called get collection that lets us get to the collection of documents, right? All the documents are stored in something called the collection. And now we are kind of in our environment that we can then search all of our documents. So in this case, you know, we're getting the client, right, that we've already defined. We're providing the namespace, which is our key space. And then we are defining the collection TikTok posts, right? And so this when this is first called, we'll actually create that collection, TikTok posts. And then we can then use it to store our documents in. So this is add data. So when we first launched our TikTok app, this function ran. This is add data. This is what populates all that initial kind of filler information that we have up there. So you can see what kind of data we are working with. And as Kirsten said, we are working with objects. So this right here that I've highlighted is an object. We have, ID, we have the name, we have the username, we have the avatar image, we have some information whether they're followed or not. We have the link to the video that they've posted, the caption, likes, comments, all these different things that we are storing as a blob, as just an object that we can then retrieve based on its ID. And so this is the all the data that is initially put in. So we have that kind of boilerplate. And then we have the code here. Let's see. So we've created a const called posts, and we're awaiting get collection, right? So we're going to retrieve that collection that we have defined, which is TikTok posts, remember? And then we've defined this array of objects that we're going to then push into our database, right? And so post, which is our collection, .create is a method. And if we go through, let me scroll down a little bit. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit just because we're running a little bit out of time.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I like to
so
talk.
It's okay. So please keep questions coming. I know I'm going a little bit fast. I want to make sure we touch on some of the prime aspects of this. But for the document API, we have a few main methods, and I'm just going to go over the three that we are using here. That's create, update, and find. So in this case, we're using the create method. And what this does is, I'm going to actually just navigate to the add.js. So imagine we have an object that we want to add, right? We've created a post. We want to add it to our collection. So we have our collection, right? We've defined it as users in this case. And then we're going to do users.create, right? Create is our method that we're using. We're going to give it an ID, and then we're going to give it the body of our object. And so what this does is it's going to create a document with that ID that we've given a specific ID, and it's just going to provide the body of that document, and it's going to store it. Very simple, right? That's how the create method generally works. Now update, so we have edit, right? We're using the update method. So now we're providing it a ID, right? So now we have a reference on what object am I updating, right? So I give it the ID, and then I give it the body again. And so it says, okay, I should have a document that has this ID already. I'm going to take that. I'm going to upsert the body, right? Overwrite anything that's different, and then save it. And then we have our find method. So when we're retrieving our data for display, right, we use the find method. So the find is basically just going to retrieve all of the, in this case, we are giving it an empty set, right? So there's no criteria or no filters. It's just going to retrieve all of our posts that we have, or all of our documents that we have in our TikTok posts collection, and push them back to the front end. In production, you probably would have some type of filter like, people that you have followed, right? Give me all the posts by people that I am following, right? So those are the three main methods: create, update, and find. And so this is the basic structure of a serverless function, right? We are getting our connection to our database. In this case, we're getting a collection that we're working in, and we're using the built-in methods given our Astra.js library, our document API library, and the return. We have a try block here. We're going to hopefully get a return of 200, which means we were successful, and the body is going to be our object that we are expecting. And if we get a 500, it means something bad happened, and we need to figure that out. And so once we've defined all these serverless functions, they will be served to us by an endpoint by Netlify, and we can see how that looks in, let's see, is it in card? Let's see, I want to see, trying to find the reference on the front end. Might just be in home. Yeah, okay. So when we first run the app, right, it did that, I call that function add data, right? So this is that add data function. We are using Axios, which is a library for the API calls. And we're using the post method of Axios, and we're calling this endpoint .netlify/function/add data, right? And so our URL, which is in your case, Kirsten, something really funny that I can't remember, but it'll be our website /.netlify/function/add data. That is our endpoint, our API endpoint. When we hit that, it will run that serverless function and return all of that data. In this case, it just runs an add data, right? It pushes that data to the database. And then here's where we fetch the data, right? We have our same URL, but we're using posts, right? So we're pulling all the posts, and then we're receiving the results, and we're setting the users. We're using the set users function and giving it that data from the results. All right. I know that was quite a bit of information, all packed in there. Questions?
And they can be questions about, why and how we're putting the functions separately, how the interaction works. I mean, this is your time. And I'll tell you that the second part of the homework is actually a video that tells you how to build this whole thing from scratch. So for those people who are like, well, I was thinking about, I thought we were going to build a thing. Well, we don't really have time to go through the whole building part in this workshop. But so we're providing you with the code so you can run it, but you could also start a new repository and follow Anya's video tutorial, which it's a quite a good tutorial. So. Yeah.
And Anya's tutorial goes into more in depth into building up from scratch, going into the UI part of things. Obviously, we have our UI here, which never actually. I've used simple browser. Okay,
you want
we have
mine?
all our no, I'm good. We have our UI here, right, which is already built for us because it was included in the code. She goes into more depth in how that part of the UI stuff is built. So if you're more interested in that, obviously, we only have 2 hours. We can only cover so much. We wanted to get the basics on how serverless functions work because it's a really, really useful and powerful thing. But if you want to go over the UI stuff, her video is the place to do that. And I put the link in the chat. It's also in the repo, and it is linked in the homework section as well as the bottom for you to check out. All right. So we have a few more minutes. We can answer questions. We also have to get to our quiz.
Oh, yeah, totally. Kind of, Felipe. Mongoose is actually a library. It's not. It doesn't create APIs from MongoDB. MongoDB, by its nature, is a document a document DB, which exposes its data via a REST API. So Stargate makes Astra more like Mongo. It used to be you could only use CQL to talk to your data. And Stargate extends that so that if you're more comfortable working with APIs, whether it's GraphQL or REST or a document API, it translates that for you so that you can work with your Cassandra data.
All right. Cam, thank you. Awesome. I'm glad that you were able to get everything working. That's really good to hear. Akash, you kind of lost your repo. Uh-oh. I mean, it should still be there.
Yeah, it should still, if you go to back to GitHub.
Sorry. That's a continuation of a previous comment about last week's stuff.
Oh, okay.
Last workshop, can I get the link to the to-do list we made last time, which had a Netlify in it, where I can connect to my AstroDB? I can give you the link to the repo from last week for sure, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, and also I just want to point out that if you guys are ever trying to find a workshop that we did, all of our workshop stuff is in DataStax Devs. So you can always just go to our list of repositories. And right now, the 2 top links on our repository pages are last week and this week.
So homework. All right. So in the repos, you will see at the top of the repo, some of the homework is laid out. It's really just follow the steps, get your TikTok app to deploy, get a screenshot of that. If you want to go through the Swagger UI stuff that we unfortunately had to skip, that would be great. Again, your tokens might be visible on Swagger UI. So if you do that, make sure you do not screenshot any of your tokens, or if you do, to blank them out, right? So here's what you're going to do to submit homeworks. You go to our repo, right? So we're on week 2, TikTok. You go to the issues tab. You click on new issue, and then there will be a template for homework assignment, right? You can click the get started button on the homework assignment, and then it will have a pre-populated template, right? So at the top, the subject line, you'll have the homework tag, and you put your name. I think it comes with like brackets around the name. Get rid of the brackets. You just need your name. And then at the top of the actual submission thing, you have your name, email, and LinkedIn profile. In order to get a badge, we do need your name and we do need your email. So make sure you fill those in, and then you add your screenshots of your homework to the issue report. And then we will, over the next week, we will probably have a lot again. We still have a couple, like we mentioned, that we have to catch up from last week, but we will be grading them over the course of the next week. And when you receive your grade, we will issue you a badge, and you can use that on different social media, like LinkedIn and stuff. And if you get all 3 badges, you can get the golden badge, and also an entry to win that Amazon gift card that we mentioned before.
I also want to point out that the homework is an interaction. So with this homework, it's not quite as difficult, like, to understand what we're asking for. But if you turn in your homework and it's not quite right, it's not like you're hosed, right? The reason it takes us a little while to get through the homeworks is because we manually, humans actually look at your homework and review it. So if you got something that wasn't quite right, we'll let you know, and you'll be able to resubmit it, no problem. So
yep.
Don't feel like, you have to get it perfect, or if something isn't clear, give it a shot, and we'll let you know if we think you need to tune some things up.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is not automated. We do it manually. And we will have a conversation in that, in those issue reports with you on how to improve your homework if it needs improvement. This one is pretty simple. To the question someone asked, so the homework is just going through the steps in the repo. Yeah, it pretty much is. We just want to make sure that everyone was successful and followed through the workshop and did the work. So it's kind of a way to do that as well. There is the optional portion as well, which is watching Anya's video, which goes much more in depth in some of the front end UI stuff. So obviously that's optional. We don't know if you've watched it, but we recommend it. So workshops that are coming up. If you go to datastacks.com/workshops, you'll be able to see all the upcoming workshops. But a couple of the ones coming up is on the 20th. We are doing a Kubernetes workshop dealing with ingress management with Traffic Proxy. So if you are interested in that, you can join us there. And then, of course, next week, we have our final week of our summer series where we will be building a Netflix clone. And this one we've done this one before, and it's been very popular. And we'll be doing the GraphQL API in this one. So if you're interested in learning more about GraphQL, or you just want to make a cool Netflix clone, join us next week for that one. It'll be a lot of fun. For other workshops, we have more than just those 2 coming up. We have workshops pretty much every week, sometimes multiple workshops a week. So again, datastacks.com/workshops is the place to find those. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have all of our past workshops recorded, and we save them, and you can watch previous workshops that are stored there. So take a look through our backlog on our YouTube channel and see if anything there interests you. We do repeat those workshops quite regularly. A lot of times we do like intro to NoSQL or intro to Cassandra, which are some pretty good foundational workshops. And we do repeat those from time to time. So if you'd like to catch a live version of that, keep an eye on that website, and you'll see when we go live. Also, if you subscribe, you'll get notified when we go live as well. I just wanted to plug our Discord one more time, and I'm going to put a link in the chat as well. If you have continuing questions, obviously when the stream is over, we can't answer questions in the YouTube chat, right? Because it's gone. If you go to Discord and join our Discord, we'll be able to answer your questions continuing on. And it's a really good place to build community and kind of learn from each other, and it's just a really good place to get information and to hang out. So,
well, and I also want to point out that a lot of our community members are amazing Astra users, and they'll answer questions, but also you can bounce your ideas off of people. It's not just for asking questions about workshops. It's, a community of people who are working with Cassandra. So,
yep. All right. Well, with that, Black Deuterium, the new homework, you can find it on the GitHub repo. It's towards the top. There's a whole section for homework. Yep.
Yeah, are we doing Q&A, right?
I don't think so. Not this week.
Well, actually, I mean, if people want to stay for a little bit, we could answer some questions.
I suppose. Nathan Griffin, where do you find past workshops again? On our YouTube channel. Go ahead, and if you go to videos, like it'll be a very recent video because we just did it last week. So you can watch those videos there. The repo will also be in the description of those videos.
And Kit, it's the same. So and if you already have that badge, it'll count towards your gold badge. Monstrum. DataStax does not provide them, but that is actually one of the things that the Discord channel is amazing for. You can talk to people who have done other things with the database, and you can ask for help. And, if we can help, we'll help. And the community members, like I said, we have some that are just amazing. So I go hang out there,
Priam has a question. I'm getting only one response from ID3 on step 14. So make sure your page size is increased. The Swagger UI defaults to 1, so it'll only return 1 document. So I think you can go up to 20. So just set it to 20 and it'll get all the documents. Yeah, that's just a limitation of Swagger UI, just to make sure it doesn't get overloaded, I guess. All right. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. And we hope you guys learned a lot and had a good time. Join us next week for week 3, our final week for the Netflix clone. And we'll see you then. See ya.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her, empowering them to achieve wondrous feats.